Welcome to Venture Unscripted, a podcast where we talk with founders and entrepreneurs about their journey from 0 to 1.
I'm here with Matteo Dariol from Bosch. So today we're going to be talking about innovation, and we're going to be talking about some good stuff with systemization of innovation in a more of a corporate structure, which this is a very interesting conversation. But why don't I hand it over to Matteo and just ask, why don't you introduce yourself, give a little background about you and Bosch?
Of course. Thank you very much for having me. So my name is, as you said, Matteo Dariol, currently working for Bosch Rexroth, which is the industrial automation division of Bosch. And I'm located in beautiful Chicago, in the Chicago Connectory, to be more precise, which is located in the Merchandise Mart. In my current position, I am trying to take a look at the future of industrial automation and see where new technologies might pose a threat to our business, or if there's a new technology that is relevant and interesting and we haven't harnessed yet, we want to learn from it and potentially build a side business that is not affecting our core business, which is provider for automation components, right? And we want to see if, to be more specific, we want to see if new technologies like cloud systems, general software, because we're not skilled in software yet, also blockchain, we're very active in that sense, could become relevant to our industry.
That's awesome. I mean, we were just talking before this, and I didn't know how prevalent in the US. Bosch is a huge player, right?
It is. In fact, we are a 400,000 employees company. Our brand is not as recognized in the US and North America in general as it is in Europe and in Germany, obviously. Bosch being a German company, right? But we are essentially operating in 4 main verticals. The most famous one, the largest one, is obviously automotive. We are the largest tier 1 supplier for automotive. And we produce everything from steering to firmware, to all the electronics components, to wiper blades, spark plugs, whatever you can think of. The second big vertical that we operate in is the industrial automation, which is the one that I'm representing at the moment. Another one that we are very active is power tools and consumer electronics, which is why probably we are most famous for, washing machines and, power tools like drills and things like this. And then the final one is energy and smart cities and smart buildings, right? So we're trying to cover all of these applications.
That's awesome. I mean, taking things that aren't traditionally smart and making them smart, that's a pretty cool...
That's our job, yes. That's our mission. Our CEO a couple of years ago mentioned that by 2020, I think we want to connect all the things that we have, all the products. So I think we are at a good level, I would say. We want to connect everything. We're really pushing IoT limits in every direction. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what is innovation to you?
Well, innovation to me is, I'm going to say something cheesy, thinking outside the box, right? We want to tackle a new problem in a way that has not been solved before. So,
absolutely. Now, some of the things that make it even more challenging, I know, is, so I'm coming from, prior, I've worked in Silicon Valley with these startups. And when you're working at a startup, you're just so agile because you're a small team, right? So you can just talk to customers, you can get feedback quickly. And then when you start to expand this to a corporate level, you can get bogged down in process, right?
That's right.
And so, I mean, when I was talking to you and you were just saying some fascinating things with how Bosch is really almost creating a great system of innovation within Bosch and outside.
Well, don't get me wrong. We still have plenty of internal processes and checklists and hidden checklists that you have to follow and procedures. So I want to give the impression that we are so agile, but in reality, we are very regulated and strictly regulated, especially for the automotive industry, right? You have to be compliant with a lot of regulations and policies, right? So. But for other fields, maybe newer fields, software related kind of things, which regulations are not in place yet, yes, for sure we can be more agile in that sense. And maybe not only on the internal process things, but we are trying to be agile in the process of creation, in the process of sparking innovation, and generate a new idea that can be successful, right? So
yeah, how are you doing that? I mean, I was fascinated when we were talking, because not only did I do a startup, I also worked at KPMG, which is also another large company. And I was like, man, we were trying to figure this out. And Bosch is really, I mean, you've developed some cool things you're doing.
We did actually. Just to give you an example, in Robert Bosch North America, we have a program called Innovation Framework. And as the name suggests, is a series of workshops, a series of events where everybody within the organization can come up with an idea at the beginning and come out with something close to a product, right? Or an MVP.
Maybe you can provide more definition as to what those 4 different workshops are.
Right. So the core of the Innovation Framework program is this series of 4 workshops where experts within the company will guide you through the different techniques in understanding if an idea is worthy to be developed or not, right? And so we mentioned, for example, the business model canvas, the lean startup approach by Steve Blank, and others. The series of those 4 workshops, there is an angel round, we call it the angel funding round, where experts from different divisions within Bosch will sit down and listen to your pitch, right? So you're essentially asking for a small sum of money to develop an MVP. And this fits perfectly within the concept of Alex Osterwalder's, right?
Sure.
That says often, he's often referring to the fact that you don't need a large, expensive R&D team to do innovation, right? You need the right idea, the right time, but most importantly, you need to kill inefficiencies, right? You need to kill those ideas that don't show good market fit. Right. And this is what we're trying to do in a systematic approach. So we sit in front of the heads of those divisions, and we ask for a small amount of money. So that's why it's called angel pitch. And then after the pitch, we have a period of time, which is usually 3 months to 5 months, to actually develop the MVP, okay, with the money that we've got. Once we finish the MVP, we are ready to show it. We have a more concrete idea on what we want to do. And then finally, the last act of this whole process is pitching in front of the North American president. Okay, and so he's North American president and also the CFO and other big decision makers, right? And so it is really important at the point to have a clear MVP that portrays your idea, and you show numbers, you show what you measured from the market, and then the final decision is actually in his hands, and whether you can continue giving your idea to an existing business unit and further developing it, or whether your idea has to be killed because there is no future for it. So
sure. So would you say it's akin to kind of seed round funding after that? You're doing that analysis then?
Right. Yeah. And what I just described is one of the many internal possibilities that people with cool ideas, innovative ideas, have to develop something.
Yeah.
Right. We have many other opportunities. For example, the automotive electronic division, which is one of the biggest, has its own framework, right? We also have a corporate entity that takes care of business model innovation just to do this. And instead of having somebody taking off time from his daily work to pursue these ideas, they actually employ people to do the due diligence for you, to scout the market and do customer discoveries for you.
Wow. There are so many different ways that Bosch is really investing in this. That's amazing. I mean, especially I think one of the things that really resonates with me is you guys seem to be a culture that's embracing failure, and I mean that in a good way, where some people shy away from it, right? Because they're like, okay, we can't fail. And you're saying failure is finding a way to successfully not do something. Right. So
you didn't fail. You found 100 things times that
didn't work.
That didn't work. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's what it seems like Bosch is just really embracing.
Right.
I love that. I mean, how do you guys also? I mean, just as a side note to this system we're describing, how do they instill a culture?
It is even harder to do this when you realize that Bosch is deeply a German company with a great culture. Okay. It's an amazing company, amazing culture, love everything about it. But in Germany and in Europe, we tend to think that failure is something bad, right? So we want to stay away from it, and we are, as I say, we are more theoretical people, right? We try to design 100 times and then do once well, right? Do it right the first time. Whether this other approach, this entrepreneurial approach, right? It's more a pragmatic American approach, right? So where you do 100 times and you learn along the way, and then eventually you will do it right. So it is a push that has come later in the last couple of decades, and especially starting from here, from North America, thanks to these programs. But now it's spreading through the whole organization and any level and any region. So we are truly embracing it. Yes.
Now, how did you guys? I mean, maybe you do or you don't know the background of this, but it seems like a very Silicon Valley-esque way to do things, right? So how did you guys end up with that? Because even across the US, I mean, shoot, the East Coast, in the Midwest, we're still trying to figure out, you know, this Silicon Valley way with Steve Blank and all these things you're mentioning.
It's ironic to say that all of this innovation framework and cool stuff are happening in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Outside Detroit. We have a research and technology center in Silicon Valley, but they are doing really advanced stuff. To do any other type of business innovation, we don't have a specific center of competences, right? We can do this anywhere we want, right? So I guess to answer your question, I don't really know the secret sauce behind it, but I know that somebody at the right level got the right idea to get in touch with Alex Osterwalder's and Steve Blank's, and you know, they fell in love with the methods, and they said, guys, this is the future, this is the way forward, and we need to embrace it. And now I guess it doesn't matter where you are, any region, any division, we can do this, right? We can help you.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And so just to reiterate that the steps are basically going through the customer discovery process, right? Going out, get out of the building, trying to find out an idea, really to fast forwarding to the whole process and building an MVP, pitching it in front of really some internal angel investors. And then once you get some funding, what happens now? Well, a question comes to my mind is, if I'm working for Bosch and my idea, let's say I get some angel money, do I continue to do what I've been hired to do as my day job with air quotes?
You do, in the sense, under the scope, under the umbrella of the innovation framework, you will continue to do your job, you do this, but then you dedicate some time to this voluntarily, okay? Now, things change a little bit once you are in the final phases of building this MVP. And especially if this MVP is accepted by the steering committee, the decision committee, right? At that point, your job title might change. Your division might change according to where is going to be the house of this tool or product or service that you have developed. So it's really difficult to say beforehand. It all depends on how good you are in building your idea and how good you are in selling it to the company, and you know, everything happens inside the company, right? So I guess the positive thing is that you have somebody that can help you. You have a safety net, right? And the second part is that you are acting as an entrepreneur, but without the risk of being an isolated entrepreneur, right? So you always have the company behind you.
Right. That makes sense. And you were just saying, you know, if you're successful, you may change your job title. And one of the things that you were saying with MVP is, you know, pitching it to the executives. What I'm trying to think of too is what metrics, and I'm sure they vary from product to product idea, but what metrics would they be looking at? Would they be looking at, you know, is that revenue? I would imagine not. Is that usage of users? Or is that, what does that look like?
So typically revenues are not measured because those ideas, those MVPs are not sold yet, right? So what we base our assumptions and what we try to measure is customer stickiness. Other type of measurements that, you know, if you open one of those Osterwalder's book, you can find, right? So we want to measure customer acquisition costs, for example. Those are easy things to do. Customer stickiness, how willing your customer are to stay, to remain once they have subscribed to your product or service, right? We try to do fake web pages, for example, where we then measure the number of visits, the clicks, the interest. We do fake videos portraying products, even if it's not fully functional, if it doesn't really exist. We're trying to gauge interest in that sense, right?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Now, question about that then is, do you also, these MVPs, do you guys use Bosch's name?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. And the reason I asked that question is because a lot of corporate entities, you'd be surprised, and maybe you know this, is like that I've worked for and with, they are, since they're so afraid of risk, they also want to de-risk themselves by saying, hey, our brand and our reputation is everything. I don't want to attach my name if this is a failure, if we can't deliver on it. So that's really interesting. Bosch stands behind. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Of course. Actually, in every customer interview that I've done, I've always said that I work for Bosch, and and I had no problems with that. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Now, if you were to talk to the audience at large, how does someone go about implementing? Because if they have zero innovation things, because you guys have not only the internal stuff, you also have the external stuff, right? I mean, you're partnering with startups as well, which is pretty impressive.
We do. So a couple of things that I can outline. First of all, I'm a great advocate for creativity. I believe that everybody should spend some time outside his comfort zone, learning new things, talking to people that are not really in his industry, so that you have maybe new ideas can arise from that exchange, right? And another point that I can bring to the conversation is the current approach that we are doing with our Chicago Connectory. So the Chicago Connectory, for those who don't know, is a joint venture between 1871 and Bosch, right? And 1871 being the largest startup incubator in North America, and Bosch is a large corporation. So what we are trying to do here in the Merchandise Mart is a dual approach, in the sense that we want to engage with partners and startups in an inside-out way and an outside-in way. So we want to bring Bosch people working here in the Connectory, which is not a Bosch office. So we are out of those regulations, out of those processes, right? We can act freely. And then we want to bring also expertise from the outside world. And we have more systematic programs for engagement. It can be a cohort of teams that have the task to solve a specific problem. It can be a hackathon, or it can be simply a meetup, right? Somebody who's engaging the community around distributed ledger technologies or machine learning, for example, can come here and have a monthly meetup on the topic, right? But also we have, as I said, other partners and startups. For example, the University of Chicago has teams here, and we are developing extremely cool applications using our sensor and technologies and their expertise together, right? And it's a win-win situation.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, so you've got this internal program that you go through to get funding. I mean, employees do. And then you've also got, on top of that, outside in and inside out approaches of having Bosch employees work outside of the Bosch environment, and then having startups helping fund that and helping support them in some way. Is accurate?
That's true. Since I'm here located in the Connectory, I'm actually exposed to a lot of very smart and interesting people. And I'm always joking with everybody, if I were to stay back in my office, I never would have had the chance to meet them, right? And know that they're doing this. And it's a great window on technology, on the latest and greatest. And
oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So how does, if large organizations, I'm sure executives are going to be listening to this podcast, and how would they go about taking their organization from zero innovation type programs to what Bosch has? I mean, it's obviously a more mature model. Where would they even start?
Right. So I would say the most effective way, and I said it before in the conversation, is you don't need to have a large, expensive R&D team to do innovation, right? So something that I really got out of the interactions with Alex also Walters was that you need to start somewhere, okay? But you need to start, and you can start with what you have. You can start with the people that you have. You can start with a small sum of money. This is important, right? You need to realize that there is a very high dropout rate. Not all the ideas are gonna make it through, and you need to be able to understand that you need to find the right market fit, right? And so start slow, listen to your customers. There is no truth in the building, right? So go out, talk to real people. Make sure to measure everything. This is another thing that it's key for every business, right? For every startup and a larger organization, you need to be able to measure everything. Otherwise, you never know where you are, and you never know what you need to improve, right? And so get what you want. Start slow. Put together a team of people. Don't waste a lot of money, but empower them into really scoping out and looking for those ideas. And then if it's if they are talking about something really concrete that has a potential, this idea will make it through. They will pivot along the way, and it will go on its own way. But yeah,
awesome. I mean, I really appreciate your time. I mean, I imagine all the listeners that are listening to this are excited because you just articulated people don't need a lot of money. They can use the existing people they have. So that's a really empowering thing to think about. Okay, I think you just need to, a lot of the things you said, like get out of the building, lean startup, looking into those things. It sounds like a good place to start.
And obviously be curious, learn different things. Don't just focus on your area, on your group of people. Get out of your comfort zone. And for managers, just embrace creativity, right? So something that I really like to do is one day a month do a in-house hackathon, right? And so try to bring things together and do something that you couldn't do otherwise in your daily job, and just to create something better. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Matteo. It's been awesome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.